Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's September 6th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this is going to wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays these days. Um, it was an interesting day. We had a really big sell-off here. Look, it started out like it was going to be a range day, a pretty tight one too. Here's your overnight low, the overnight high, and we were still trading within that, up until 9 o'clock. And once we went lower, my first move would be to measure that. And I actually moved this down later. Earlier I had this up here. But as we started making lower lows there, I adjusted that. But that's where I originally had it. And that's really where the high of the lows are. So I just measured that, moved it down, and then so I was looking for a measured move here. And you can see we bounced a few times there before we went lower. So that would be my first target. But I would also, this is a big, strong sell-off right here, and you can see how strong that sell-off is. So I would measure that as well. And then from that little failed break higher right there, I'd look for a measured move. And you can see we got actually, if it's not a perfect measured move, it's within a tick. We bounced, got a break out of this short-term trend line here, or trend channel, and made one more move down. Then we reversed a little bit, made another move down, reversed, and we traded back up most of the rest of the day. So we took a good bit of this back. We actually sold back off a little bit in the afternoon. So we're just, we're hovering around that 2,900 area, and prices just can't really get through there and succeed. So we got through there for a few days, but lately we just been kind of testing each side of it within a few, within 8 or 10 points really. Of course, we got down to 2868, so we're 22 points below 2900 now. So but most of the day was, well, I shouldn't say that. The morning was a downtrend, and then the afternoon, I would say we probably rallied back a good bit of that. So we got back within the lower half of the range and just kind of stayed consistent across there once we got above it. But let's back out. We'll talk about the trades and we'll wrap up our week. But hopefully that makes sense on the two targets, how we found the measured moves, because this is definitely a little range here. And I want to talk about this because somebody asked me about this area, and I'll talk about that when we get to it. I'm not sure if he was trading a time-based chart or whatever, but he only had like a couple of bars here, and I've got 5 or 6, 7 bars. So I'm not sure. And you can see on my chart it looks a little different than it did his, but he went long there. So if anybody else went long there, just listen. We'll talk about that area when I get to it. However, first trade I saw, we were just in this range. You can see again, here's the overnight lows, here's the overnight highs. We're inside that. We've consistently turned down up here, and notice how we're making lower and weaker highs every single time. You made a little lower high, a little lower high, a little lower high. Closes are a little lower as well each time, so that's not a good sign. Even though we're really consistently bouncing across here, we're making lower highs. And you would expect prices to be trying to work down to here. So it just took a little work before we got there. We bounced, we came back up, we tested the high again, had a little failed breakout, and then it was off to the races. And you really don't get a good chance to enter this downtrend, unfortunately, at least not on my chart. Maybe yours looked a little better, I hope so, because you hate to miss out on that. But if you're just patient, then we started chopping around down here, and we got a little failed breakout. And what this does is this traps all the longs, most everywhere you look, and amateurs think you buy the breakout, and you're going to get burned 90% of the time on that. It'll work sometimes, but it'll work just enough to keep you guessing. But notice this, we traded down into this little area, and this is really, this is still a range, but this is more congestion because we trended down into this. We could bounce and come out of there, but the odds are if we have a successful breakout, it's going to continue on in the same direction. And so this is like a little correction here. It's really a move down to this low, and then it's really a two-legged correction, and that is generally the center point of your pattern. So, oops, I never grab the line I want to grab. So measure that. You can see there's your measurement. Bring it over here and then look for a measured move. And we hit that almost to the tick. And so that would have been a perfect target. And if you enter here, you're going to catch a runner and you're going to be able to ride this down. And there was actually another chance to get in here on a failed second entry long as well. And so turns out to be, even though you can't get in here, if you're just patient, you get another chance at it. And I hate when you miss a trade like this, but it just doesn't look like, I mean, we know we're just coming off the high, so we're probably headed to the low down here. But this is a perfect doji. This bar is way too bullish. It's a lot of sideways action there. It's just not a great entry, so you just have to bypass it. But anyway, let's talk about these trades and we'll move on. But we're going sideways here, and we move up, we move down, we move back up, and this is when you might start to think, hey, we're getting some support across here because we tested it once, we tested it twice, we tested it a third time, and this was a little before 7 o'clock, or that might have been a decent entry, although you can see you've got a trend line and there's no break of it yet, so I don't know if I would enter there or not. It just depends on, I mean, you could look at it as a double test, but with that trend line working down, it's risky. So, but anyway, we bounce, we go back up, and you get counting off the low, there's a first entry, and then counting off the high, this was a first entry. And so you may get a second entry, and we get a second entry. You got enough room to get out, so I like entering there. And you had a couple of extra ticks to spare. But at the same time, when this made a lower high and basically a double top on the closes, this is pretty much a double top, but this is a lower high too, and that's a big bearish bar. I don't have any problem going short right there. It took a few minutes, but it would have worked out, and then it bounced again. And technically, there's a second entry long right here after bouncing here multiple times. But when I saw those two in a row, side by side, they're relatively bullish bars, but by the time they close, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars, 7 bars stacked up there, stems on both sides. It's too big a chance it breaks up and fails, which it does, but it would have got enough to work, but you don't know that ahead of time. But when it makes that lower high, I like going short there, and that's really, you could treat that as a double test of this level right here, because you've got a double top and then you come back to test it, and there is room to get out. It's not a perfectly bearish bar, it's fairly bearish, so I made it green, but it's real close. It could swing red. I mean, it's right there at the borderline. It's not a bad trade. So, but there's some reasons to be a little concerned about it. And but at this point, you got to be looking at this as a little congestion range area. And as long as you got enough room to get out, you could take that trade. You make a lower high here. It's a perfect doji though. And it's right back into these lows. There probably is enough room to get out there, but I'm not going to take that trade without a better setup, and you just don't really get a good one. And then we bounce here, and notice this, that we've really got a double bottom here, and we made a low, a second low. So, and then notice there's 3 bars with matching lows there. That's a double test of that level. We're a little bit away from the EMA. Relatively bearish bar. These two are bearish, but this one's bullish. If I said relatively, did I just say relatively bearish? I meant relatively bullish. There's a couple of bearish ones, but being a double test and if you've got enough room back to the EMA, I'd probably take that trade. Plus, if you look at this down trend line, we've had a close outside and a move to a new low. Generally, you want to wait for a higher low, but you don't get one here. You're already back up to the highs again, and you probably would have this extended across here. Not probably, you should have. And so you don't want to be going long right into that. And then, of course, you get that little failed break higher, but not a very good signal bar. So wait on the lower high, see if you get something. And you get one, it's a perfect doji. And at this point, you're really still right back in this range again. So I'm going to be real hesitant to go short right there, right into that on a doji, and it ends up just taking off. And you just don't get another chance to enter it. The bottom just falls out of it. It does come back to the trend line right here, and there's a hidden second entry in there. That's a relatively small bar, but I'm just not crazy. It's only 3 ticks, but you've been away from the EMA a while. Your best entries are usually at the EMA, so you might take that one just because it's not it's such low risk with only being 3 ticks or whatever. And then it comes back again here, but again it made a new low, so it's just a first entry. It's not a perfect signal bar. You might look at it like a little failed break higher, um, but again I would wait, because now you've fulfilled your reversal pattern because you closed outside and got a new low, so you may get trapped right here. So just wait. Then it comes back and gives you the double test, a nice bearish bar. If you got room to get out there, go short, which you do, and that's a nice scalp. And notice, remember, we traded down into this, so if you're looking for failures here, your smart ones are going to be failures to the upside. Although we might reverse too, but we haven't made a measured move yet. So, but they're having real trouble getting it down. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll run prices out the other side and let it fail, and that gives it the momentum to push on. And notice how it went right on back, right on through there with no hesitation at all this time. So there was a second entry short right here, a double test. I like that one. It was good for a scalp only. And then you got the failed breakout here, big bearish bar. I like going short right there. There's a lower high here, but you've had your measured move. This is almost a doji, and we're just kind of going sideways here. This is a tighter congestion. And this is where the other trader went long. He had a nice bullish bar here, just one bar, and it went up just a little bit and turned and went back down. But you can see there is a bullish bar there, but it's finding resistance right into there, and we traded down into this. So I'm going to want a really good setup to go long here. And you don't get that on this chart, or not on mine, because by the time, notice this looked like it was going to be real bullish, but it didn't turn out to be. And then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars stacked up, stems on both sides. I'm not going long there. It does break higher, and what does it do? It turns down instantly. It's a second entry short on and you could look at it like a breakout pullback short, but that bar is just too bullish. Okay, I had a little emergency interruption there, and I think we were talking about this trade, then the failed breakout. Or actually, we were talking about this situation here. And there's a second entry short, but you don't get a good entry. But guess what? This is actually congestion right here, so this is almost a repeat of this right here. And notice what happens. You fell out the top, but you don't get you don't get as good a signal bar like you do here. And it fails out the top, and then you run down and fell out the bottom, pull back and test it, and it takes off again. And this is basically, I don't know why this thing's coming up. This is basically, notice you're coming down, first entry, pull back, second entry. So that's a failed second entry long right there. And so it doesn't really matter as much about your signal bar. It's a very neutral signal bar. But again, this is a little tiny repeat pattern of this right here almost. And this takes off. And you actually get another big signal bar, but you got to go short at the very low of the day. And even though it works, I don't recommend it. And it moves on down. We finally bounce. It's just kind of bouncing off that trend line. This thing is weak here, and it's so close to a measured move. I guess the market's just still pushing to make that measured move. And you actually get within a tick. I can't tell if it's right on it or it looks like maybe it's a tick off. But You get a little higher low here, it bounces, and you get a second entry short with a real small bar. Again, very low risk because there's only like 3 ticks in that little bar, and it's a second entry short. There's no break of that trend line yet, but with that being a second entry short and the first break of this trend line, no overshoot on the trend channel, I'm gonna take that short most likely. There's a little higher low right here, but the bar's real neutral. It's closing above the EMA, so I don't like that one. And it runs down and makes the new low on this channel, and then it reverses from there. And you never really get a good chance to go long here. There is a failed second entry short here and a second entry long, but everything's still below the EMA, and there's a little bit of a close outside the new low there, but I would expect prices to make a new low, and they just made a double bottom here. So this is a possibility. You could argue for this one to be green. And it does take off, but you don't know that ahead of time. And this is just really sideways. Look at all this congestion. Doji basically bullish, bearish, semi-bullish, semi-bearish, more neutral. There's just stems everywhere. This is just more congestion than anything. That's why I really don't like it, because it could have just run back up to these highs and turned back down again. But it takes off, comes back to the trend line here on a second entry, but again, it's a very neutral to bearish type bar with a big stem on each side. Notice it doesn't really take off either. It eventually goes higher. You finally get a nice bounce here. And you might have looked at this like a breakout pullback long, because again, this is congestion right here. Just look how we're going sideways. But this is right into a double top. Notice that double top. If you drag this line down, you can see it a little better. That's a double top there, and you don't want to be going long right into that. And it does fail on the breakout, but I'd wait on a lower high. And you do get one, but you're still bouncing off the trend line, so I'm not going to go short there. But when it bounces again, it makes that failed second entry long. When it goes lower there, I'd go short. And it actually comes back here, but that bar is too neutral, but it does come back here and breaks higher and turns. Gives you a big bearish bar. I like going short there. And you get a little overshoot. This is like a little spiking channel. You get an overshoot here, so you would expect a break. And this is a double test of this level right here. You tested it once, you tested it twice. Big bearish bar. It's only a first entry, but with that double test, I think that gives it all you need to enter again. You can see that right across there. That's a double test. And a bearish bar. Just go short. You got plenty of room to get out too. And this thing runs on down. It's another nice move down. So if you caught that one, you'd have got several, a runner gets a few points out of that one. Then it bounces here. Failed second entry short. It's the only reason I like that one. That's a big move up. Pulls back to the EMA. Failed second entry short. Go long there. And then we're just kind of chopping around again. But you get a higher low right here with enough room to get out and a bullish bar. So you can go long there. You don't want to. There's a higher low here, but it's right into those highs. Then you get a breakout pullback and a double test of that level. And what I really like about this one is you try to go lower a few times, and it bounces right off the EMA, right off the trend line, and right off the support resistance that's now acting as support. So you got all kind of support right behind your back, what I call confluence right there. I like going long on that one. It's after 2 o'clock, but it's right there at the 2 o'clock hour. I'd probably take that one. And of course, that turns out to be one of your better moves. It takes off. Once people were convinced that this had given way, then they jump in. But the smart traders are not going to enter strongly right into those highs. They're just not going to do it. So anyway, that's what I saw today. We've had some volatility and some volume last couple of days. And that's a fairly strong two-legged move down, and then we went sideways a little bit, and then a little bit of a rally. So that's the way I would kind of classify this day today. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it Monday. I'm done for today. I hope you have a great weekend. Hope you had a good trading week this week. Hopefully, if you've learned something. But I'm going to wrap it up today. We'll be back next Monday. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.